Well, hello, what's up, guys? Welcome to Talkoffamepod podcast with Kylie. Now, today's episode of the podcast, we are welcoming a professionally trained male voiceover talent and an actor's assets, eligible commercial TV and stage actor, and full-time minister church planter with over 20 years of formal acting ministry education and experience. I am pleased to welcome Jason Leadingham. Welcome to the podcast, Jason. So nice to meet you.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Absolutely. So like what I know back in high school, college, you did sports and acting. I know you decided to pursue acting over sports. Like why did you kind of choose acting over sports?
Well, it kind of chose me because I'm short. I love playing sports in high school, but when it came to college, I was just too short. I didn't want to be the point guard in basketball. I want to be the shooting guard. Just wasn't tall enough. And a really pretty girl asked me to audition for a play when I was in college, and I said, "Yeah, I would love that. I did that as a kid. Why not?" And then I have been doing it ever since.
Like, do you think if it wasn't for that girl, if like that asked you, do you think you never pursued it?
Who knows? I would like to think I would have came around to it at some point because it was in my blood. I acted on the stage, and my parents got me involved as a 6-year-old. So I've been theater's been part of my life forever. So I would like to think that yes, eventually I would have came around, but I think it would have took a lot longer for sure.
Oh yeah. If it wasn't for this certain thing, you probably wouldn't have done it. You know what I mean? It's just always that one thing that makes you start it, even though you had that background.
Absolutely.
Like, how did you start a voice acting business? So you have a voice acting business, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's been going on about 5, 6 years, and that came out as kind of as a necessity because I started having children with my wife. We got married and we got pregnant really early on. I say we, she did. We got pregnant early on, and I was gone all the time. I was living in Florida at the time in West Palm Beach, and I was auditioning in Fort Lauderdale, Miami. That's kind of where the studios were, and it would take an hour and a half to get there. If I booked the job, sometimes I was on set 2, 3 days a week, and we had a baby. We had one on the way. My wife's like, something's got to change. You're gone way too much. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And I want to be around. I want to be a present father. So I want to be there. So, but I still wanted to act. I'm like, where can I find something? So actually it was my wife who got me and started in voice acting. She got me involved in my first class. I thought, I'm an actor. This is going to be easy. Totally different skill set. Totally. I mean, there is some very common ground of finding your character and finding the scene that you're in and find out who you're talking to and who I am, which version of me in the multiverse I am talking in this particular scene. But it is a different skill set when it comes to nuance. Like when you're on film, it's all about your facial expressions and you don't have to talk loud. And when you're in theater, you have to project and talk to somebody's in the back row. And when voiceover, it's all about your voice. You can't see you, so you have to act. Everything's got to come from your voice. So it's pretty cool.
Did you ever lose your voice on one specific project from
Oh,
screaming?
Oh man, I from screaming, absolutely. I've done some video games where I mistakenly in the beginning, I didn't know enough in the beginning. I got lucky and got booked in a video game, and they wanted me to do what's called emotes, which is like the sword swinging, and the dying, and all those things early on. And I didn't really know what I was doing because I wasn't coached on that. Now, since then, I've been coached and I know how to do it without losing my voice. But I didn't know, and the director at the time didn't know either to make sure that the actor does those at the end of the session. So you're supposed to record all your lines first and then you do your emotes at the end. Well, I did all my emotes in the beginning. I'm screaming, didn't know what I was doing. And then by the end, I couldn't talk for 3 days after that for sure.
Ooh, if voice acting was a job for me, I'd be like, I'm not losing my voice in this. Like, this is just
Absolutely.
too much. Like to scream and this pretend be imaginary person is this is too hard for me. This is way too much
Absolutely. You
hard.
have to learn to take care of your voice. That's for sure. Vocal health is major important. And I kind of learned as I went, but now I take measures that I don't do that because if I don't talk for a day, I lose money. So it's
Yeah,
important.
because if you do not do things like every single day, you're like, screw it. I need to work every single day so I can get paid, like for my kids.
That's right. That's right.
Were you originally from Florida? Like, did you and your wife live in Florida, or were you
So
out of state with your
my
family?
wife and I both are actually from a very small town in Kentucky called Falmouth, Kentucky, but we were born several years apart. Her father was actually my minister. We'll talk about that hopefully in a little bit. Growing up, and they moved away to another country called the Czech Republic, and then we came back around years and years later. But after Kentucky, my family moved to Florida when I was about 15. So I kind of, it depends on who asked me and what time. Am I from Kentucky? Am I from Florida? Because most of my life I was in Florida, and I grew up and went to high school there, went to college in Tennessee, came back to Florida. I moved away to North Carolina, came back to Florida, and we just moved from West Palm Beach a year ago. We haven't even been here a year yet. So we're in the Indianapolis, Indiana area in a small town called Greenfield, Indiana.
Ooh, like like I know it can be very hard with the weather change. Though, because the Florida weather is like Palm Beaches. Like I go to Florida like every single year. Like me and my family have like stuff going down there and family down there, so it's like an excuse to go. But like Indianapolis and Florida weather, like they're so different.
Is crazy different. It's pretty much the same year round in Florida. Indiana, it is cold, freezing cold one day, then it's hot the next day. My family's still adjusting. We have no idea, like, oh my goodness, it's crazy. But we like it. We enjoy the seasons. We've enjoyed having a real winter. My kids never seen snow until this year, so that was awesome.
Yeah, like I live in Pennsylvania. So like every single day, like it changes. Like one day it's like sunny 90 degrees. Like today was 90 degrees, and so is tomorrow. And it's sunny, and probably the next day it's probably gonna be like 60 degrees, rainy. Like you do not know, because every day is like very different. Like it's just like, would you rather every single day be warm and sunny, or would you rather be 40 degrees and rainy?
Exactly.
But like you have done voice acting gigs in which your voice range can go from like the mid 20s to early 50s. Like how did you change like your voice and playing a 50-year-old acting gig and trying to like adjust your voice a little bit?
Yeah, that takes skill and time as well. So my voice, I think, sounds younger. I'm 46, but I think I sound like I'm in my 30s. And if I want to sound younger, I'll just raise it up and talk a little higher and kind of use this voice right here and kind of talk a little bit like, hey, man, what's going on? And it's also your lingo. And if I'm older, I'm going to bring it down. I'm going to be a little lower and slower, talk like I'm in my 50s and talk about fishing and going things, doing hunting, things like that.
Yeah.
So it's just about your character, who you're playing at the time, and how old do they need to be, and that's how old I try to be.
Like who's like the oldest character you ever played?
The oldest character I've ever played, well, I was a really old man one time on an audio drama, and I had to play myself as an old man. So I was probably 80. And I, again, just talk really low, really slow. And the character was from the South, so it's easier if I have a Southern accent to make my voice go up and down, because that's my natural tone, is that Kentucky accent. So I can use it
Oh
pretty
yeah,
free.
with that experience with a Kentucky accent or a Southern accent, you're like, okay, well, this is definitely me. This is easy peasy. That's
Right.
probably the best, like the easiest role you ever played, right? Because you
For
like
sure.
have like a Southern accent.
For sure. For sure.
Like, did you actually work with Magic Johnson? If so, like, what was your experience?
I did. So that was one of the last commercials, on camera commercials I had, because I had a 1 year old, and again, my wife was pregnant. And so I'm like, oh my goodness. And then I got this amazing, it was a Screen Actors Guild commercial for Simply Healthcare, and Magic Johnson. I think at the time he was part owner of the company, and he was in all their commercials. And I was fortunate enough to be cast. The commercial was a commercial within a commercial, where I was the director of the commercial. So I had to give Magic Johnson his lines, and like, cut, Magic, you did great. And he actually taps me on the head at the end, because the height difference is huge. His hand is like bigger than my whole body. He was massive. But it was great. He's a super nice guy. And all his people, were around. It was great. And he hung out and talked with us. He didn't act, my holier than thou. He was just very down to earth and a great guy.
Yeah, you do not realize how big Magic Johnson is until you actually see him in real life. Like I actually saw him back in 2018 at Dodger games. He's like an owner of the Dodgers, part owner. And I remember like when I was down with my father at a playoff game, I remember walking past him in the stairway at the end of the game, and I'm like, looked at him and looked at my dad. I was like, bro, he's massive. Like you do
Massive.
not like just like you never realize how big Magic Johnson is until you see him. And I was like, once I saw him, I'm like, oh my God, this guy's a giant. Like this guy's a giant. Like I've never seen a guy that tall and that like muscular type of thing.
Crazy. And he played guard in the NBA. He wasn't he's a tall guard, but still they're bigger guys than him. And it's like unbelievable, unbelievable.
Now I'm wondering how big Michael Jordan is in real life, though. Now I'm
Yeah,
wondering that.
massive. Yeah, massive. They're massive. These guys are huge.
Oh yeah, like you do not realize how big these basketball players are. I seen a guy like a long time ago that was like almost 7 foot. And I'm like, how can people get 7 foot? Like this is like someone needs to do a discovery on how big people can actually get. Like this
Yeah.
is insane. But like you got to do some voiceover credits for KFC, Samsung, Uber Eats, Dairy Queen, and many more. Like, what voice acting roles have you given you the most kind of professional satisfaction? Like, kind of give you more experience and where you're happy with?
Yeah, that's kind of been my bread and butter. I kind of get cast for these like sarcastic commercials. A lot of times they're on Spotify. They get picked up a lot on those when they're have a playlist and things like that. And that's been my kind of go-to commercial voice. And so I did 5 spots for Coca-Cola over the Christmas break. And that to me, that was the most fun. I love Coke. I'm a big Cokeaholic. And get to be the voice of their brand over Christmas break on Spotify was pretty cool.
Oh, was it like last year Christmas break?
Yeah, last year 2022, 23 into 2023 into January. Yeah. And I did one
Ooh.
almost at the same time for H&R Block. So I had 2 ads on at the same time, which was like, man, I was like, listen, guys, listen, that's me. That's my voice.
Yeah, because people don't realize until your voice until like you post a big, oh yeah, I'm part of this commercial. Like
Oh
even
yeah,
people
my own
oftentimes don't
parents.
realize.
My parents can hear a commercial and be like, that was me. That wasn't you. It was. That was me. I promise.
Yeah, people be like, that's how you even your own parents, they don't recognize your voice, even though they've been living with
Yep,
you for so many years. Like no matter how, like for say 40 years, they just still don't recognize your voice in that commercial. That's
exactly.
like sometimes my parents don't think like I'm doing this like thing. Like I'm 16 years old, I'm doing this. Like people all the time not often think I'm older because of what I'm doing. Like people
Oh,
have
I
like
absolutely thought you were older until I saw your bio, and I'm like, this is amazing. That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, I thought you were like 28.
actually.
Yeah.
Like I can't tell you how many people mix it up. Like I can't tell you how many people thought like I'm older based off what I do. I even had one of my friends tell me I was older based off what I'm doing. I'm like, okay, now like this is crazy.
And I
Like
I
it's
love it. So I was a youth pastor forever. So I worked with teenagers almost my whole adult life. And when I found out that you were, I'm like, I even want to do it even more. I'm like, this is amazing. You're a go getter and I love entrepreneur. And I love that.
oh, thank you so much. I mean so much. Is there anyone that you worked with that made like kind of like a lasting impact on you then or maybe now?
Yeah, anytime I've worked with any of my coaches, my voiceover coaches, I have several. Tim Powers, I've worked with Dave Fenoy, I've worked with Mark Ryder. I have a lot of all those. Ariana Ratner, these guys they're all over the place. Ariana is like her lists for IMDb credits, like she's in every video game that you've ever can imagine. She's voiced it, been a voice on it. So getting to work with them. My current coach is Malik Berger. She's in all kinds of stuff, and my agent is Portia with Coast to Coast Talent in Los Angeles, and she represents big time people. So I just got on her roster a few months ago, and is this real? Is this real life? So big influence on my life. That they have been and incredible. Magic, as far as on camera, was a great example in my life he's so humble and down to earth. So that was great working with him as well.
Like you do not realize how many people made an impact on you until you actually started. Magic Johnson, for example, like with how big of a superstar he is, like he's one of the biggest basketball players, or might even be the best basketball player of all time. He's one of the best ever. And like, by the way, like I don't like it's not related to Magic Johnson, but have you seen Air with Jason Bateman, Matt Damon, and all these guys, like a couple
No,
of other and
I have not.
yeah, like it's a basketball movie based off of Nike signing
Oh,
with
Michael
Michael
Jordan.
Jordan.
I've seen the trailer, but I haven't seen the movie yet.
Yeah, I saw it weeks ago. I totally recommend seeing it. Like that movie is actually so good. Like I'm planning on watching it again because how good it is.
Wow, I
Like
can't wait.
that movie's good. And I'm a big Jason Bateman girl, so
Me
I'm
too.
like
I like well,
the
my
one of the reasons I watched that movie was because of Jason Bateman. Like I love Jason Bateman.
He's awesome. He's incredible. I've watched him since he was a teenager. So yeah, he's
Oh,
incredible.
really?
Yeah, he's awesome.
Ooh, like a go-to
Arrested,
fan, I see.
Arrested Development. Oh my goodness, you can't get better than Arrested Development. He was awesome. And
Oh
then
yeah.
Ozark. Oh my gosh, forget about it.
Oh, Ozark, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. But like, what was like your first like ever role? Like, whether it was like theater or
Yeah,
movies,
so I
acting.
was when I was 6 years old, I was in a regional production of Annie Get Your Gun. I was little Jake, so I got to use my southern accent from the very beginning, and I got to say things like the bar jumped over the mountain, and sing and have my first song and things like that. So yeah, that was my first one for sure, and fell in love
Ooh,
with
when
it.
you were 6 years old, right?
Yep, 6 years old.
Ooh, so you started early then, like 6 years
Absolutely.
old. That's crazy.
Yep, for sure.
Now, like now, do you ever reflect on that role? Like now, like at like 46 years old, do you ever think like, oh my God, that's the best role to start out with at 6 years old with a Southern accent?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like now looking back, like, oh my goodness, what a connection! Because those are my favorite voiceover roles now. If I get to be a character in an animated show or whatever, and get to use my southern accent, and that's where I started when I was six. Absolutely, and I just think
Hmm.
about the community that I was in, the people that you do a play with, the acting community. I've always been in love with. They were awesome. They accepted me early on in my childhood, and it's always been a part of my life. So
Ooh, like is like your favorite thing to use your second accent, Southern accent in movies and stuff? Is that like your favorite thing to do when acting?
yeah, I would say so. That's probably my favorite because it's the easiest for me. That's not somewhere in college. I lost my twang that I had every day. I had a good voice and diction coach, and my voice. I'm from Florida. We don't really have an accent in Florida.
Hmm.
It's slightly southern, but not really. Even though it's the most southern state, but so when I get a chance to slip back into it, if I get really tired or hungry, maybe even, or I get around my parents for very long, it comes right back really easy. So it's the easiest for me to pull up and change and have fun with, and it usually makes people laugh.
Florida, like it's not really like a southern state. It's more of like kind of
No,
like eastern type of state since on the East Coast. Like
oh,
every time I go to Florida, I see everyone with a tan. I feel like it's like a tanning people state, honestly. That
and
should be its nickname, be like, oh, it's a tanning state.
they'd say, and everybody is from. No one's from Florida. Everybody visits Florida, and they move there from someplace else, either up north or over the West Coast or whatever. And so they're just it's a big melting pot of people. So there's no one real accent. If anything, there might be a slight Latina accent because
Mhm,
that's what's there. It's amazing.
mhm. Yeah, or even Cuba. Like even people
Yep,
come from Cuba
yep,
or any outside countries to go to Florida. And like in Florida, you basically see everyone. Like you see people from Cuba, Southern, Western,
yep.
Eastern. You see everyone down there in Florida.
Sure.
But like, do you think having kids like changed kind of you as an actor and getting gigs?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Well, again, it was my big transition from on camera to voiceover because I had kids. And then when I became a father, I was able to really reach some emotions that I mean, I would read for roles as a dad and wouldn't get them sometimes. And sometimes I would, and I didn't do them very well. But it's because if you don't know until you know, you can try. I play roles that I'm not myself, that I'm not a dad. But when I had kids, I'm able to connect to the emotions that I would never be able to connect. To think about losing a child, if I have a role where I have to be really sad, I can get that pretty quickly now because I before I'm like, yeah, that would really be really sad. But now as a father to think of losing one of my children, oh my gosh. And then the emotions well up pretty quickly and I can get there pretty quick. So it definitely changed. And on the opposite as well, having extreme joy. I'm a really happy guy my whole life, but when I had my son, I was a new level of happy that I didn't know I could even have. So
Because like when you like are a father or a mother or even like a family member with a niece, nephew, or whatever, like you did not like you never realize how much you are gonna miss someone when they pass away until they actually do. Because like when you become like I say an aunt, uncle, or a mother or father, like you can't imagine like losing that person. Like with my nephew, like he's 2 years old, about to turn 3 in August. Like I once he was born, I'm like I don't want to lose him. He's the most lovable kid. Like, because I'm a big like family person. So I'm like, if I lose someone from my family, I'm never gonna get over it and
yeah,
stuff. And like because I'm big because I love my family, I'm close with them. So if it's like whenever I lose my nephew or my aunt or uncle, great grandmother or something, I'm like, I can't imagine what I'm going through. Because like even when some like your friends family member dies, you're like, oh, that's sad, but it's never gonna happen to me. You know what I mean? Until it actually happens, you're like, this is absolute hell. Like this is like why did I think like this is not upset like bad upsetting?
Exactly. And when you become a parent, it's a whole new thing, a whole new
Oh
real
yeah.
and joy and sadness at the same time.
Oh yeah. It's like when you become a parent, like you see things very differently from before you became a
In
parent.
every stage, there's things when I was a kid that I didn't understand until I was a teenager. And then when I was a teenager, then I was a young adult, and so forth. And it goes on your whole life, married, not married, the whole thing, boyfriend, no, not a boyfriend, like the whole gamut of life. Every time you have a new experience, like wow, I didn't realize it could be that awesome or that awful.
Yeah. Like you do not realize until it's actually happened to you. Like you do not realize. But like how do you like balance acting and family life like every single day?
Yeah, and that's tough. So I'm also a church planter and a full-time minister on top of a full-time voice actor and a full-time husband and a full-time dad. And so my
Yeah.
wife and I we do a really we sit down every week and we try to get our schedules lined up to make sure we know how the kids are going to. I'm also my son's baseball coach, our assistant baseball coach. So we're trying to balance all those things at the same time. So for me, what's worked in my life is that we just schedule every week we take one full 24 hours off to do family, just family. We don't do any work. There's no church stuff. There's no acting stuff. I don't audition. Yeah, nothing is zero for 24 hours. And sometimes that day changes. We try to do it on Friday, like from Friday afternoon to Saturday afternoon. But sometimes it's all day Saturday or sometimes it's all day Monday. Depends on because if I got a great video game gig and they say, hey, we're going to book you on Friday, then guess what? Day off isn't Friday, but we move it to the following Monday or Tuesday or whenever it is that we can. My jobs are very flexible. So I'm able to have that kind of flexible schedule to do that. And my wife is a stay-at-home mom, so we're able to do that kind of stuff. So I'm also a workaholic. I could work all day, every day, and I'm a night owl. So I have to work. I work early mornings and late nights. So I just have to make sure that we take that day once a week completely off and do nothing to help me rest and rejuvenate. And then we make sure at least once a quarter we take a couple of days off, and once a year we take a longer vacation. So just
Ooh.
rest. We have to do it.
Oh yeah. Like I'm a workaholic as well. Like I literally wake up around 8 o'clock in the morning, go till like I don't know, like 10:30 at night, even longer, or even shorter. It's like even though in the morning I have school and then the rest of the day I'm like doing podcasting or catch up on work, I'm like doing something. But like there's like very rare days that I basically just do nothing, like absolutely nothing besides watch TV. Like this last weekend, like previous
You're yawning
weekend.
right now. You're yawning right now. See,
Yeah, I'm yawning right now.
you're burning the
But
candle at both ends.
yeah, I'm yawning right now. But it's like this previous weekend I had nothing, like I literally did basically nothing. Like I didn't do podcasting. I basically
Nice.
did not no work. Like it was like nice because like of course I went out and saw people and worked. Well, I had work. I mean, that's technically still work, but I did go in person and basically just not do podcasting or anything like that all day. But
Yeah.
it's like I still did work, but it's like not anything podcast related because I'm always doing that. But like Monday was like a day where I'm like, I have no work, I have nothing going on. This is a day where it's Memorial Day, so it should be fun and celebrating. And so I literally went kayaking that day with one of my friends. I'm like, screw this. Like I literally did have work all weekend. I worked like 5 days every single day last week. I'm like, I need to take time for myself and do something fun.
Good
And then when I
job.
did that, like when I had that day, I'm like, why do I not take these breaks more often?
Yes. I
Because
found
you're
the more that I rest, the more I can do. If I keep
Mhm.
going and I don't take time to rest, then I get burnt out and I stop I'm still working, but I'm getting lazy. I start making mistakes. I'm not enjoying it. I'm just kind of going through the motions. But when I take a break and come back to it, man, I'm ready to go. And I can do twice the amount of work as if when I'm tired. So taking breaks, I think, is huge.
Oh yeah. And like how do you get like good audio when recording, whether it's like your podcast or like voice acting?
Yeah, equipment, spending lots of money.
Oh,
So
you have to have the
it's like
money.
everything else. You start with what you can, right? You get a microphone and you do what you can. I got coaching early on, which I thought was key to my early success. That I took time and I invested money in getting because I knew how to act, but I didn't know how to voice act, and so I know I needed a good coach. Magic Johnson had a coach his whole life, and if Magic needed a basketball coach in his late career, I need a coach, in my voice acting. So doing that early on, I think helped me. And then as I booked jobs, I was able to raise my business income, and then I upgraded my microphone. I got more coaching. I got better headphones. I got a better sound booth. I have an embarrassing story. My first sound booth was actually in a shower. We had this
Ooh.
back bathroom, and I had no idea. I thought, oh, it's gonna be so easy. The worst possible place that you could do voice acting is in a bathroom. The acoustics are awful. The sounds bouncing over the place. Like I have deadening material, and I had the opposite of that in there. But I didn't know. I didn't know. So you just kind of get started, and then you go and you upgrade, and then you upgrade, and you upgrade, and you get training. You upgrade. So this is probably the third custom made booth sound booth that I made. My father-in-law is a carpenter as well, and so he's helped me design all three of them. And this one actually has ventilation, so I can breathe in the summertime when it comes in. There's air that comes in and air that's sucked out, and it's quiet, so it doesn't come pick up on my microphone. And so having the right equipment and having a treated space is the best way to have the best kind of recording.
Oh yeah, that part of the shower story is actually hilarious. So, like,
Absolutely.
was that when you actually first started voice acting?
Yeah, I actually booked a job in the shower. I booked a paying gig in the shower. Now it wasn't very big; it was like $50. But I booked it, and I only had like a few tiles in the shower with a. If you're familiar with a drum kit where they have that plexiglass that goes around drums sometimes. So I had that for the shower door, and I had a couple of these tiles, and I booked a commercial. And then as my coach was like, "Where are you recording from?" No, that's not. You have to get in treated space. And then I learned what it takes to actually be a voice actor, and it came up from there.
That's actually insane. I would honestly do the exact same thing, honestly. I'm sometimes my mind and my personality can just be very stupid. And that is actually something I can see myself doing if I have no idea what I'm doing. And I'm being totally honest about that. There's no honest I'm not holding back, honestly. I would actually see myself doing that because if I was a voice actor, I'd be like, okay, well, let's go shoot in the shower and do something like that. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? And people be like, what are you doing? And doing that in the shower, at all places.
Yep. Yeah, unbelievable. But you learn as you go. Just like I'm sure your first podcast wasn't amazing. You learn as you go, right?
Yeah.
As you interview more people, it gets easier, it gets better. You grow on it, just like everything else.
I can't tell you how much the episodes have changed since the first episode. I had no idea what I was doing when I did my first episode. No idea. And if you look back to the first episode to the episode I have already have published, the latest episode, you'll be like, oh my gosh, this kid has changed from that first episode 2 years ago. Yeah, I'm like when I can't even look back at my previous episodes because how embarrassed I am.
Oh,
Oh my gosh, these are so bad. But it's
100%.
just the key to working, key to
Right.
growing.
And a lot of people don't ever start. That's the whole key because they can't be perfect from the beginning. And we're so afraid that people are going to think that we are going to get embarrassed or whatever it is because we don't have the perfect booth, we don't have the perfect podcast format. Sometimes we just have to start. And then
Mhm.
you ready, fire, and aim as you go, and you get better and better and better. A lot of people never get off the starting point because they're too scared. So,
Oh yeah. The most important thing is just getting started. You do not know until you get started. If you you do not know until you start. It's even if you're already self-doubting, you're they'll self-doubt yourself after you started. Don't self-doubt before you start because you do not know how it'll go. I self-doubted before I even started this podcast. And I didn't know how much it went I would go crazy for until I actually film my first episode. You do not know until you actually do it a couple of times.
exactly.
But you are the host of the Dad Bod of a Destiny podcast, which is an audio fiction comedy where a Duffy dad is hurled into a magical world of adventure, prohibicy, danger, and a chance of redemption. How does the dad get close to redemption? Is my
Ooh,
question.
that is a good question. That really doesn't get resolved until the end of season one. So I can't give spoilers of how he gets totally redeemed. But the whole story is basically this guy from South Dakota who's kind of like me, played sports in high school, then got a little bit out of shape. He gets sucked into this like Lord of the Rings fantasy world, and can he survive? That's the whole deal. And then all this stuff that he's trying to do, like he's running from orcs and he's lost in the woods, and then he has a flashback to when he was lost in the car with his wife and kids, and they were trying to get to grandma's house, and they got lost, and they got in an argument, and he got sharp with the kids. He was yelling at them, and then he takes that lesson that he learned looking back, and then he uses it in this Mysteria land. We call it Visteria. That's the magical land that he's in. He learns the lessons from his past, and now he's growing as a father and as a husband and as an adventurer, and he's trying to take his lessons that he learned in life and now apply them to survive. And will he be able to learn enough to fully redeem himself and get home? That's the question.
Ooh, like when's the end of season one? Do they have like a date like set up for season?
So we started last September, October, and we do. It's used to be every 2 weeks. Now it's going to be like every 3 weeks because our cast is getting bigger and bigger. We've got about 41 voice actors that are part of it. We have 4 writers. We have original music that was composed for the podcast, and so it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We're on episode 12 has been written. Episode 11 is live, and so right now the actors are getting the scripts for episode 12. We have the outline. We know where we're going all the way to episode 20, which is the end of season 1. But we have live out in the air right now up to episode 11.
Ooh, sweet. Everyone go check out the podcast. I'm definitely going to tune into after this interview. Like I'm like so invested right now with everything.
Absolutely do it. You can find it anywhere you get a podcast. It's Dad Bod of Destiny. Yep, check it out.
Ooh, amazing. Everyone go check it out. You heard it from me. But like you are like a full-time minister, church planner with over 20 years of formal acting ministry education experience. Like what is kind of like a church planner? Is it kind of like planting stuff outside of church?
Yeah, no,
Or
it's starting a church from the ground up, from the very beginning.
oh,
We had 0 people when we started. Actually, we don't launch the church fully until August the 6th. And so right now we're remodeling an old church building that had been just decaying, and no one touched it for years and years. And so in the neighborhood around it, all the property around it was just gross and weeds. And we had a tree in the front yard of there's a house on the property as well. We had a tree in front of it. We found out it wasn't a tree, it was actually a weed that
oh
had
my
grown,
God.
and no one had pulled it, and it was over the roof. It was up to the roof ledge of the roof. It was that big. So the property has been abandoned for a long time. And so this whole year we've been here remodeling, getting the church ready to launch. We've been doing some things in the community to kind of reach out and tell people that we're coming, that we're here. And we've got about 25 people that are on the core team that are going to help us launch the church in August.
Like how's the progress going? Is it going? It was better than like what it was a couple months ago.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, we thought if we were being lucky, if we had in August, we had 20 people, and we already have 25 people. So we're like ecstatic. The buildings on the inside look good. The outside, not yet. We haven't painted it yet, but we've done landscaping. One building we did like 5 30-yard dumpsters of just trash. It was like
Ooh.
an episode of Hoarders. It was really bad. And so we have cleaned out a lot of stuff. We remodeled, new carpet, paint, things like that, and we're getting ready to go.
Ooh, like if I was there and I saw something like that, I'm like, this is probably not going to be done in probably years from now. Like if it's that bad, honestly, I'll probably be like, okay, well, this is probably not going to get finished, but also try and get some things done.
It's going to
So
be
it
an
get better than it
ongoing
was.
project for sure. It's going to be finished as we go, just like your podcast, right? We just got to
Ooh.
start and keep it going. That's what we're going to do. We got one space that it's like outside's nice, inside's nice. We're going to launch it from there, and then kind of branch out on the other property as we grow.
Oh yeah. And like, how do you do acting ministry for churches?
So what I've done actually is for youth. What I do is offer free acting lessons, voiceover lessons, acting lessons for teenagers that want to be involved in the church, and I have them come in, and I teach them how to act and how to not act, but how to be characters in different scenarios. If they want to do voiceover, if they want to do live theater, and then we videotape a lot of that stuff and use it for sermon illustrations and object lessons in the church.
Ooh, that seems so interesting. Like, is it like a hard process to do that, or is it like,
I
how
don't
many
think
like?
because I've been doing it since I was 6, right? So I think it's pretty easy, and I just teach people what I've been learning my entire life, and I enjoy doing it when my ministry life and my acting life get to come together. I just have to make sure that when I'm teaching or preaching that I don't act. Like that's hard. The hardest part for me is to be authentic when I'm teaching. And then when I'm acting, I can be crazy and go nuts and be creative and do whatever. But when I'm actually teaching, as part of my role as a minister, then I want to be as authentic and as real as possible. So it's a fine line for sure. I want to be entertaining, but I don't want to be a stand-up comedian either. So
Yeah.
that's my biggest struggle for me, is to make sure that I'm doing the right thing, wearing the right hat at the right time, at the right place.
Yeah, because like you trying to figure out like what person you want to be in that moment, or where you like you just sometimes have to be like, okay, well, where does the line go in this situation? Like how should I be myself and my actor self in that situation?
Exactly. And there's so much hypocrisy, or people feel like there's so much hypocrisy in the church, where people aren't, they're saying one thing then living another way. And so I have to make sure that as best I can is to live a life that's an example, by what I say and where I go, the things that I do that are reflective of what I'm teaching, from the Bible. So I have to make sure that I do that when I'm the pastor, but when I'm an actor, I let loose and go crazy.
Yeah, and combine it, right? Like that's the best way combination is like church things and we're acting just combine together to do the two things you
Exactly.
love.
Exactly.
But like, what is like some advice for voice actors? And that's the last thing I have for you.
Yeah, the number one thing for voice actors for me is to get coaching. Everybody thinks they can grab a microphone and grab some auditions and go and get rich quick. And it doesn't happen. You have to have, it's just like everything else. If you want to get better, you have to have a coach, but it costs money. It
Yeah.
costs money to get a coach. I mean, now that I've been to it 5 years, I'm starting to coach now, but just very beginners. I don't coach people that have been doing it for a long time, because I'm just into it for 5 years. So, but people are getting started and want to try voiceover. I try to give them as much lessons that I can learn and stuff that I've learned from my coaches, and kind of pass that on. That's the main thing to get started. You need equipment, yes. You need a treated space, yes. You don't want to start in your shower, yes. But the main thing is to find someone who knows that maybe it's just one page ahead of you and that can coach you to get you to that next part.
The coach is the most important thing because like they have more experience from more than you. So you're like, I'd just rather get a coach that's been doing this for a couple of years rather than be a beginner and have no experience whatsoever in voice acting.
Yeah, so you someone like you, I'm a great person for that. So I've been,
Yeah.
anyone that's been into it for a few years that wants to pass on what they've learned. Beginners, absolutely. And then people that have been in it for a while, then they want to go to like the coaches that I coach with now, like Malik Berger and Adriana Ratner and Tim Powers, those kind of people. Those are the professionals that you want to get involved with, and you always try to get someone who's ahead of you, who's doing the job that you want to do, getting the gigs that you want to gig. My coach now is booking for Disney and Marvel and Star Wars, and that's what I want to do. And so that's who I'm coaching with now.
Oh, amazing. Just keep that goal. Keep that goal. Keep that mindset. And like I want to thank you so much, Jason, for coming on the podcast. It was such a pleasure to have you and speak with you. You're amazing and learned so much from you. I hope everyone learned as much as I did. And I hope everyone's having a great rest of their day. Make sure to rate, subscribe, and like this episode. And thank you so much, Jason, for coming on and giving us your knowledge.
It was awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course, have a great rest of your day, Jason.
You too. Bye.
Bye.